Well, hello and welcome to my channel. So you've decided you've gone ahead and bought the GoPro 7, and the reason you've done that really is because it's got that gimbal smooth quality. That's what it says on the box. And then you go and hit the trails, or you go and skateboard, whatever action sports that you do, and then you discover that that footage is actually quite crap. And then you discover the reason that it's crap is because the algorithm in the GoPro software on the camera just can't cope with low light situations. But it doesn't say that on the box. What it says is Hypersmooth gimbal quality footage, or words to that effect. It doesn't say gimbal smooth quality crap in low light. So what I decided to do while I was at work is, in a bit of spare time, using my own phone, rang up GoPro customer services and asked some questions. Now the guy I was speaking to, whether it's his fault or not, I found him to be as much use as tits on fish. Now I asked a couple of questions, to which I was put on hold for about an overall of the conversation 20 minutes, and he came back and his information was absolutely useless. So in other words, he was saying, you know, just turn the Hypersmooth off, do this, do that. But the whole point is the footage wasn't great as it was in the low light situation. So if I was to turn the Hypersmooth off, how would that look? Well, surely that's going to look crap as well. And yes, it did. So what I decided to do was invest some of my own time to clearly try and figure out how I could better the picture. Now, it's not the absolute positive solution to this, but it will certainly smooth out the footage and get the best from the algorithms that work within this camera. So I decided to go to a place called Rogate. It's a downhill bike park, because that's what my channel is. And I went through all the different settings. So I'm going to take you through the different samples of footage that I took on that day and just show you how bad that low light quality is. Now, for some of you, you may not have experienced that yet, but the last thing you want to do is get home, think that you've successfully captured some quality footage of whatever sport you're doing or whatever you bought this camera for, and then discover it's all unusable. So here it is, first one at 2.7K, because that's what I like to film in, and it's at 24 frames a second. So you can see, just looking at that footage, it's absolutely abysmal, shakes everywhere, and when you put it on the big screen, like a TV, it looks even worse. So the bigger it's scaled, it looks even more horrendous, so completely useless. So then I decided to keep it on the same settings, but this time go up to 30 frames a second, and this is what that looked like. And you can see there is a little bit of improvement, but when you get it on the bigger screen, still it looks abysmal. And the idea is, we've got this GoPro 7, revolutionary in the way that it can capture stuff, and this Hypersmooth technology is amazing, but it's just not. So I decided to up the frame rate to 60, and this is what happened. 60 frames a second. Let's see how she performs. And you can see that the footage is still not great, considering this device in the UK at the time of launch was selling for £380. Now, just to give you an idea of the investment I had to personally make, because I couldn't afford to go out and just spend £380 on a new camera, what I decided to do was sell my GoPro Hero Session 4 and my 5. Still didn't have enough money to then go out and buy the GoPro 7, so I had to put some of my hard-earned cash into that device. So effectively getting rid of 2 GoPros that were already at quite a good standard, I thought, and then going out to buy this to find out, oh Jesus Christ, I have made a bad mistake. So then what I decided to do, taking the guy's advice at GoPro, let's have a go by taking the Hypersmooth off and seeing what that looks like. Well, a little bit different on this one. I've gone for the happy medium, 30 frames a second, and I've turned the stabilization off. So although it says auto on there, it is either on or off. So let's see what happens. So what I discovered is that footage is even worse. So the guy at GoPro, clearly no idea what he's talking about. How can you capture smooth footage with Hypersmooth off? Because let me tell you, unlike the other GoPros where it works on that video stabilization, this, although it says auto on the settings, it is either on or off. So Hypersmooth is your main option, and then of course when you turn that off, you have nothing. And this is the sort of footage that you get. So it's no good to anybody trying to produce videos for the social platform being YouTube. And I like to catalog my stuff, and when you spend £380, it's not the best footage to go forward with. So then I did what any normal person does. You go on all the forums, then you start watching other people's videos and seeing what they're doing, looking at their settings, and you get people that state that they found the absolute best settings for low light. And I tried them in the situations, bearing in mind I'm still losing lots of good video because I'm trying to work out what's the best, and found that that still didn't work either. And then I see people saying, right, well, you probably need to make a chin guard, or you need to stabilize this GoPro somehow. I thought that's the idea of me buying the 7 in the first place, so I didn't have to worry about that so much. So then I try alternative mounting arrangements. Now I like the chesty because it's the most immersive POV experience you'll get on a GoPro on a mountain bike, I personally find. But then I tried it underneath the visor, I tried it on top of the helmet, and the head acting as a gimbal will smooth out that footage, and there was a little bit of an improvement, but still the low light situation was struggling and that picture was shaking everywhere. So it still didn't work, and I'm just absolutely frustrated at this point, and I'm thinking of selling the GoPro 7 and then going back and buying the previous models. Now that is not an advancement or a step ahead, but what I didn't want to do was give up, so I kept plowing through the settings, and I found something that works really well and clears up that picture, probably the best that you're going to get until they do some more software updates. So let's go to the camera and I'm going to show you those settings. So of course all you really need to do is turn on the camera, and then let's access those settings. So in order to do that, press down here, and as I said, I like to record in 2.7K. Now I recommend that anything from 1080p upwards is the resolution that you're going to look for, because why would you buy this otherwise? And then you can decide what frame rate. Now you can go into all the other options, and I'll sort of very briefly go over that for what I use, but again it really does boil down to personal choice. Now it's this feature here that is the one that's going to give you the best footage possible given the low light situation, but how do you access it? Well, the only way to access it, regardless of what resolution you're in, is if you're in 60 frames a second. So click on the resolution and then click on the frame rate. You can see it's set to 30 at the moment, and then change that to 60. Now when it's at 60, you can see it then goes into auto. Now auto, it is either on or off, but there's something else that you've got to actually consider before that option becomes available as it is right now, and that is the ISO setting. So if I was to change, for instance, the min ISO to 200, and then go back up, you see that the low light option goes off. And that's because the only way this actually activates is if you set to 100 as a minimum, but you have to set the ISO maximum to 1600. Now I understand it, I get it, that the pixelation may concern you slightly, but it's going to work at a minimum of 100, going up to a maximum of 1600. And trust me, compared to the picture quality that you're going to get if you don't have this set in a low light condition, it is worth the sacrifice, honestly. Now the other settings that I normally have dialed in for my mountain bike trips, I always use super view when I'm on the bike. If I'm filming someone, I'll go to linear, and then sometimes wide if needed. Stabilization, as I say, is either going to be on or off. So although it says auto on there, which I can see on the camera is not easy to see, it's on auto. When you set it to off, there is no fallback. It's just very jittery footage. So the stabilization is absolutely rubbish if you don't have Hypersmooth on. I always use ProTune because you can go in and delve with the settings there. And then when I do a lot of post-production editing, it just gives you a lot more option with the colors. Shutter there, I always leave it auto. Now I do dabble and play with the EV comp. I either set it between sort of minus 0.5 or 1 as the two favored settings. But if you don't like that, then of course you can just leave it at 0. Just gonna leave it at -1. White balance I do not play with, so I always leave that on auto. You can see my minimum ISO and maximum is set to 100 and 1600. I have a sharpness of medium. I always select my color at flat so that I can adjust that in a software program called DaVinci. I just leave the raw audio in off. And what I have discovered with this and mountain biking in particular is stereo does produce a better sound quality, definitely, but the wind still penetrates quite bad through the wind slayer. So when you set it to wind, I find that you get a much better audio experience on this. And that's it for the settings that I use on the back of this device. So you'll find that when you have this set, so pre-plan, if you've got perfect conditions, then I normally set it to 100, 100 or 400, 400. But in low light conditions, which is exactly what this video is for, 100 minimum, 1600 maximum, activates the low light to auto, which means on. Just make sure it's turned on through the app. You'll see there's an option there on one of the menus. So make sure it's selected to on, and then that way that will actually activate for you. But as I say, you can only use this in 60 frames a second, so just bear that in mind. I'm gonna link this into the description. I paid $195 for this on Amazon. It did take about 3 weeks to get to me, but it's specifically for the GoPro Wind Slayer. Covers up those mics, saves you sticking those horrible stickers over it, and they actually do a pretty good job. So I ordered a few of these. The cutouts were already in there, and as I say, I'll link it all in the description. Make sure you go and buy one of these because it does give a much better experience when you play this stuff back. So with those settings that you see that I've dialed in there and I've actually shown you, I took the camera up to QECP, which is my local bike park, and it was a miserable day for one. Muddy, raining, it was foggy, perfect low light conditions as such. And then I started to film what was a good time on the trails. Now you can't really tell how good the footage is when you look at the screen, because while it looks alright on playback, it's only when you go to the bigger devices like a phone, tablet, laptop, TV screen, you realise that the quality is rubbish or not. And as I found out, with these settings applied, it was so much better, so much clearer. I can only apologise for the amount of mud and water drops from the rain that were going on the screen, but that's action sports for you. But what you notice is the jerking around and that shaky, horrible motion of unusable footage captured at that row gate example at the beginning of the video has disappeared. Now, while it's not perfect, I didn't go home frustrated that I'd lost so much footage from what was actually a great day out. Not the best place to start, but that's the one. Oh my god, that was not the best line. Just got to get used to this thing. Here it comes. That's the big one. That's a good jump, mate. And here's the pallet coming up. First time on an e-bike for me. Oh, smooth. Woohoo! Oh my god, that was some stopping power from the brakes through that. Here's our little gap that we like. Oh yeah. Now I really hope that this video, more than anything, has just cleared up a couple of things. So, you know, what has been quite a frustrating experience with this GoPro 7, I'm actually now starting to enjoy the fact that I can go out on the trail with the settings that I know I can apply quite easily and capture some great footage. Now in the daytime, you know, with the sun out as it is now, if I was mountain biking in these conditions, that Hypersmooth is absolutely sensational. You know, and I haven't got the footage to show you what can be captured there, but if you look at the card up there, you'll see one of my latest trips with Jamie from the MTB Trail Hub, and that captured some absolutely stunning footage. So I'm so happy that in great conditions this performs exactly like it says on the box. But GoPro, you have massively let yourself down in the fact that you just highlight this as Hypersmooth, you know, it's gimbal quality footage, but you don't say anything about the low light stuff. And when people buy this, they're either wanting to return it or they're just so dissatisfied with the footage that I can see all the same sort of comments reaching your forums. Your customer service is a load of crap. The people don't know what they're talking about, unless I was actually just really unlucky and got through to the one person that just had no idea about the GoPro 7. But more than anything with this video, I hope it's helped you out. It's certainly been a frustrating journey for me to try and work out what those settings are, but I've finally worked out the best solution given where we are at the moment with software on this thing. So of course, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment, because I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this, and maybe you found an even better solution. That would be absolutely fantastic. So highlight that down the bottom, and of course, if you love the content, then come back for more, and to do that, press the logo there, subscribe. I'll see you for the next one.